Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and thanks for stopping by. Our dedicated team will guide you through with the latest updates and theories at Starbase, Texas. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for future streams.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Starbase fans from around the world. Astro Joe here for RGV Aerial Photography, Starbase Weekly, episode number 97. We've got some great pics from yesterday, November the 3rd. We hope you enjoy. I'll pass it on over to Ryan Hansen.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another flyover, and got a lot of images today to look at. Of course, we'll have our own little theories based on the changes to talk about. And then, of course, we've got some news regarding the next launch that we'll kind of dig into a little bit as well. So it should be an exciting stream. Go ahead and pass it over to Todd.
Good morning, everyone. This is my first time here. I appreciate you guys for having me. I was at Starbase last weekend, my first visit for La Padres Crowfest. Kind of going to give a first-hand perspective of what it's like to be there for the first time.
Okay, good day from Australia. I'm Stephanie. Welcome everybody to another Starbase Weekly live stream. Please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons and consider becoming a YouTube or Patreon member. This week we have interesting developments, and as you heard from Todd, we're going to see what it's like to see Starbase in person. So let's go over and start Massy's rocket testing facility. An interesting perspective from far away we don't always see. And this shows how lucky we are sometimes to get photos because it gets cloudy. And today it was a bit cloudy, but we managed to get some photos through. First big change we noticed at Massy's is this whole area is being levelled out. We see the whole burst pad area has been filled in and the rock has been taken out and it's all been levelled right out. Any thoughts on this area, Ryan?
Sure. Yeah. It seems as though the burst testing may be over. Wouldn't make sense to kind of fill in this low-lying area that was meant to capture any of that liquid nitrogen, or LOX, depending on which one they choose to use. I think they typically choose nitrogen mostly, but yeah, it wouldn't make sense to fill in this pad here. if they intended to do more burst testing. So it's possible that this test tank will live to see another day and will not actually be tested to destruction. And the significance of filling this area in would likely imply that they are planning to develop this area with kind of a different intent. We still see the concrete slabs kind of off to the right have not been touched yet. Not sure if they will keep those there or repurpose them for something else, or if we'll see those get torn out and kind of the whole area reconfigured. Kind of wait to see what comes of that.
I think there was some concrete torn up just there last week. And maybe that's some of the rock from the burst pad area as well. Okay, moving on. So it's a lot of clearing and a lot of flattening. That's a lot of dirt came from up here, and I guess a lot of dirt came from the actual berm here. Moving on, we'll move on to this building next, which has advanced a little bit more. We can see they've put the mezzanine level all the way through. It shows that quite well in this photo. We can see there's a bridge crane runway and its end stops in here. We saw this last week, but we can see it's been finished on this side. And that's a clear span. So from that post all the way over to that post is an open span. So that's an open workshop in there. I'm guessing it's a workshop for some fabrications that need to be made at Massy's here, because there's always something they need to be working on here at Massy's. We haven't seen a bridge crane yet. We've been looking for a bridge crane. We haven't seen a bridge crane or a trolley as of yet. And moving right along, over onto the test area, we can see we've talked at length about this 24.2 test article that's going to test the payload bay section. And we're expecting to see rams connected to the top rim up here. And over on that corner, there's another ram over in that corner to be hooked onto the top rim. And a couple over here to be hooked on as well. And then later on, of course, we've got the rams down the bottom. We can't really see in this photo. There's hydraulic actuators down the bottom, and they'll be hooked up with ropes over the top of these little pipes that stick out, which are kind of like a peg for the rope to go over.
That would be a change from last week, because that test article was not placed inside of the nose cone jail, as it's called, until just this past week here. So looks like they're gearing up, getting ready to test this component, which hopefully provide them some good data, either some verification or other things regarding the design changes that they've made to the payload door area. I know there's been quite a few variations of that, so hopefully they can get some data from running a test with this article here.
So the crane has been disconnected since this photo was taken, and we can expect to see the cap go on in the next day or two up on top to add some rigidity to the actual nose cone jail. This nose cone jail has had a lot of changes since it first came here. And not much else changed in this little area. Just while we're in this little area, we can see the hippos haven't really moved, and there's one of the manifolds. I guess it's one from on top.
Yep, that appears to have showed up. That was not there in the last week's flyover, so looks like they are either preparing to do something with these, or maybe they're just starting to collect some parts here.
Yeah, there's some parts at the build site too, which could be for here as well. Okay, over at the tank farm, we can see concrete is continuing. SpaceX loves their concrete. You can see all the mesh, the Rio mesh. I believe this is some more Rio mesh just sitting on top of the concrete, ready for some more concreting. So this will be an area for the trucks to turn around and obviously for some more car parking. SpaceX have really ramped up on the car parking assets lately.
Looks like the parking lot may continue a little bit further here to the bottom of the frame. Haven't laid any rebar yet, but the cutout around that tree kind of indicates that off to the right there that they likely intend to kind of continue that around. Plus, just judging off of the tracks in the dirt there, that they likely will continue some of the parking lot there. So we'll see when they decide to expand in that direction.
And I'm kind of guessing that they'll continue the concrete around onto the driveway. And over in this area, we can see some trench work. On a good authority, I'm told that the main electrical mains at Massy's run around this border here. So this is more than likely to pick up some power. We can see the trench continuing underneath the tanks. So it's most likely going to this building, or which would power this area. And this area over here as well, which are the pumps, the locks up there. On a different angle, we can see the trench going up under that slab. So perhaps they use some directional or horizontal borers to get underneath all there. I might quickly cross over to Joe with any questions or donations, and g'day chat, by the way.
All right, I haven't seen any questions come in regarding the Massy's location, but I want to thank 55 Chevy Guy Steve for starting the donation train. Here's something for flight and fuel costs, $10 super chat. Jim Cavett gifted a membership before the stream started, as usual. Thanks, Jim. He also came in with the $10 super chat. I'm on board. Happy weekend, RGV and team. Our very own Todd Bernal, $10. Choo choo. And Jake Winlow, $10 super chat. Let's keep this train rolling. And that's what we got right now.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, everybody. We appreciate the ongoing support from our YouTube members and YouTube viewers. Thank you. So not much more around Macy's, unless Ryan, have you got anything else?
I did not pick up anything else that seemed obvious looking through here. It seems like they are kind of touching up various places throughout the site, but I'm not really seeing anything else that would be major.
So a little picture from Todd when he was down here last week with his daughter. This is the entrance to Macy's. So we can see the extent of the roadwork going on. And it's believed that they won't be moving a booster until this is fixed up, because there's not really room in here for a booster. And once again, under good authority, this would be the mains supply to Starbase. That'll be the high voltage 33 kV to Starbase and Star Factory and the launch site. Okay,
Yeah, unfortunately,
go on, Todd.
this is about as close as we could get to Massy's on our weekend. I heard Monday you might have been able to get a little further, but they were turning people around right down that road. The whole area is under construction, one lane right at this point, so we unfortunately couldn't get that close to it. I definitely wanted to, but they would have just turned us around.
And could you say, go on, Ryan?
It was Silly Kid. Hello, everybody. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late, hanging from a little bit cold here. On Sunday, we were able to go down the road to Massy's and get all the way up to the gate, and there was no construction on the road, but that road is like a washboard. It is very, very beat up from all the construction traffic going on it. And so they've got to replace that road sooner or later, probably pretty soon, because it is really bad shape as it leaves Route 4 and gets up to the gate up there.
Okay, thank you. It's good to hear some firsthand Crowfestians, I call yous, from the Crowfest Granias. Okay, we'll move on to Sanchez now then. Sanchez. Oh, hang on. Anyway, we've got the slider here. We'll have a quick look at the slider. We love this tool. It's a very good slider. So these are some aligned images that Mauricio did for us. And we can see all the difference, all the changes. All right. Okay, 1 second. Okay, now I've got the image loaded up. We can look at Sanchez. Okay, let's look in a bit closer. We'll start over at the ground fabrication building. We can see the trenches being filled in predominantly, and we can assume that there'll be some transformers sitting here to hook up to this. As far as we know, there's 1200 volts running around the site, and it goes into transformers locally back down to 110 volts. So there should be a lot of welding and cutting, plasma cutters. We can see an argon tank installed, and lots of work with the roof and paneling.
Yep, they're kind of working on this ground fab building, seemingly kind of, between other major tasks. It's probably not a time critical thing at this moment, but they're making good progress with it. It seemed like it sat forever without any work, and they're kind of, getting up a lot of the skin work here in a decently paced manner.
Okay, I've got to fix up my mic in a second. Yeah, it is, yep. Apologies for the clicking on my microphone. I'll fix that in a second. Okay, over to the rings section where they're building those rings. We can see work continuing, and we have the platform now. The legs, we saw legs over here, or some of the legs at least, some here and here. And the platform's been created. Something new we've just seen are these mystery objects. I wonder what they are. Any ideas on that, Ryan or Phila?
I don't really have any particular ideas at the moment. They do kind of have a weird load spreader type shape to them, but I wouldn't say that they are load spreaders, at least right now, because they're not very symmetrical. They seem like they have a kind of an intended shape to them. Like they could be used for something. It's kind of the one thing to note is that the ends, they kind of, I can't tell if that's a shadow or if there is like an unpainted part on the ends of the kind of the thicker sections. So they potentially connect to something that they haven't painted yet. Maybe they weld later. So maybe we'll see some interesting things with those happen here over the next week or so.
Yeah, it seems to be consistent on each of the ends, which would suggest it's not a shadow, even on the different angles.
Given that they are painted white, and usually paint would be one of the final steps of assembly, I'm guessing they're getting ready to use those in some way.
Well, being white, I'm wondering if they have something to do with these actual stands.
That was one thought I had as well. Yep.
Hey, Ryan, do you think that they're going to be attached just to one large object, or are they going to be using them individually, or was it just too early to tell?
It's probably too early to tell. It looks like there might be 3 of them right now. And we do have 3 of the white stands, so maybe there's a correlation there. I'm not sure where exactly they would attach them to, given kind of the shape. But it's certainly possible that they could attach to like the side of one of these white stands and then provide, some sort of a like a platform. They may put like metal grating on top of them. I know it's kind of similar to a lot of the structures that they've built for the launch tower, where they kind of have a frame structure and then they'll put like metal grating on top of it and like a railing. So maybe we'll see them do something like that with these. But right now, it's probably too early to tell.
Okay, hopefully that fixed up my microphone. So not much work going on that we can see. Yeah, so we have some marks here, and if that's where the QD is going, they seem to line up with the chimes, but that's just speculation. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, those marks are something that I noticed pretty immediately, and they are interesting because they seem to be right above some of the arms, I guess you could say, or the pedestals that the booster would sit on, which wouldn't exactly align with the chines, as well as the fact that the chines are technically clocked differently, whether they're on the booster QD side or on the other side. They're not perfectly, 90 degrees from each other or 45 degrees. So, um, but yeah, the very interesting. My first thought was they may had something to do with kind of that alignment pin system that they have on the launch mount to kind of guide the base of the booster downward. But given that that system uses 2 and this appears to have 4 marks, um, is a bit interesting. It could indicate maybe a revised system of sorts, or it could be completely unrelated. Not really sure at this moment in time. Um, but yeah, these black ring stands are a bit interesting. It's maybe something to note. I know can't remember if it was talked about last week or not, but the white engine installation stands have the same clamps on them that these black stands do. And I know immediately those clamps were seemingly an indication that these stands could be for something more than just a transport stand or an engine installation stand. And given the commonality there, it seems possible that they could still be something more than a kind of just a stand to hold a booster. But the correlation with using the same clamps could either mean that they're just parts bin, grab the same parts, or maybe they're not super special. But it is interesting to note that there appear to be 3 of the white stands now, and at this moment in time, it looks like there's only 2 of the black stands. But we'll have to wait and see if they end up building a third one of these black stands or not.
Yeah, the only difference there is that the white stands have the 10 clamps and the black stands have the 20.
Yep.
So obviously they're going to hang on to the booster a lot stronger with the 20 clamps, which sort of leads you to think along the idea of transport, or perhaps personally I think they may have something to do with some spin prime testing at Macy's. I know there's a lot of theories out there and we can never say any theories right or wrong, so we'll see what happens in the future. Also here they've been doing some scrapping. The stand from Kennedy seems to have gone, and this seems to have a bit more destruction, a bit more scrapping. And a heap of rings have moved away. Now, I get confused whether that's the Kennedy stand or if that's the old stand from the tracking station. We'll see those rings in a minute. Just some wonderful different angles here of this area. Thanks for the imaging there, RGV aerial photography. You see them backfilling in the trenches here. An argon tank again. Okay, so we'll move on. So they're all missing. Move on over to this area here, the power building. See work continuing with the power building. We assume it's some kind of power distribution building. And there's put some volts in the ground here, ready to join through here. We can still see the formwork in there with the props holding it all up. Or maybe not that one, but in here we can see the bracing, and looks like they're putting a vertical column in here. Should be poured in concrete. And the concrete truck's here actively pouring as we speak. And that'll be a concrete pump. Just while we're here, there was all that black poly pipe was sitting here last week, has all been moved. And we'll see it again later on over near the Star Factory. So this seems to be being built like a bomb shelter. It's quite solid with the concrete walls and the formwork up. There's a scaffolding all around. Last week we saw some conduit risers in here, so can't really see them at the moment. They're maybe under scaffolding. All this piping has to come up in here somewhere. And they've closed
On Sunday,
up. Go on.
On Sunday, we could see them taking large sections of rebarb over that area. At the time, I wasn't quite sure what was going on, but you could tell it was going to be some pretty hefty building because the rebar was pretty thick. It was from a distance. We were at the Rocket Garden, so it was hard to see, but I could still tell it was pretty thick.
Yeah, last week we saw a heap of that Rio was piled up over here, so they've pretty well got it all installed at the moment. I'm not sure that could be Rio. Kind of looks like a pack of Rio. What do you think, Ryan? Or Phil, does that look like Rio? That looks like Rio.
It's bundled rebar.
Very good. Oh, there's a stand that's being disassembled. A stand or just a ring? That's one of the little stands I use for production, I think. In these photos, we can see these new parts are quite flat. From the top down, it almost looks like they have an angle, but they're actually very flat. And we can see those unpainted ends here quite clearly too, on each of the ends. And perhaps even on this end, Ryan, looks like that's unpainted as well.
Yeah, I was just noticing that as well.
So yeah, another interesting mystery object to keep an eye on. Some of these photos are all those different angles give a little bit more view of different things. That looks like a cutout there. We haven't seen any doors, but Phil, I think you're saying the doors can hide behind the boxing sometimes.
That's correct. Yeah, they just put the boxing or the formwork up and they frame out inside of it for the door so that the concrete doesn't fill that void when they pour the concrete. So when you pull the formwork down, there's your door inside.
Okay, and we've Can I see it in this photo? No, hang on. There's a tank missing from here. So not sure what happened to that tank, or whether these tanks are coming out as part of the air separation unit getting destroyed. I'm
Actually,
not
is that
sure there.
tank the one that's across the road over there to the right on its side? Or is that a new tank?
It doesn't have its legs, but they could have taken the legs off it. It does look like it.
No, that tank was there last week. So
Okay,
the
thank you.
other tank is unaccounted for. It is somewhere else now.
Okay, the rings that were missing over near the ground fab area seem to have moved over to here. And that's what was different. Over there, that Ship 15's aft section was over there in the scrapyard. It's now over here, so maybe this is the new scrapping area and these are getting scrapped, or it's just being a storage area. As they tear things down, they tend to make it into a storage area. So work continues here. They're destroying concrete a bit more. I think they're jackhammers. Cleared land around here ready for concrete. Looks like they're starting to work on the tower as well, possibly to pull the tower down. And there's a vacuum pump working here. Not sure what he's up to. Seems to be hooked up to that little tank. So what are your thoughts, Ryan, of this area, the air separation unit? It's obviously getting destroyed. Do you think moving, or perhaps we'll see a new one here, or this could be a nice little area to continue the rocket garden, perhaps?
I'm not really sure at this moment. It's obviously transitioning to kind of a different phase of operation, and they are kind of pulling things down, as they can. At the moment, it looks like they're kind of just using it as a kind of an overflow area to hold stuff at the moment. Long term, I'm not thinking that it will be used for the rocket garden, at least not right now. But it's possible that they could add some more like engine installation stands over here, possibly. Seems like a little bit of a bottleneck is only having one of those at the moment. So maybe they'll add another one of those, but I'm not sure if it would actually transition into becoming kind of a full rocket garden. It seems like that area would be a little too big. It'd be a little too big kind of to, use as something like that. So I feel like there may be some additional infrastructure they might bring in here of some sorts.
Very good. So we saw Ship 26 get transported last week, and it's arrived here at the rocket garden. Work continues on Ship 28. Seems to be dragging along. Maybe they're waiting for Ship 25 to have a flight before they finalise the heat shielding, or before they make a decision on which ship will be next. So the speculation that Ship 26 won't fly, and the speculation that will fly. The speculation if 25 doesn't achieve the goals, they'll launch 28 to try and achieve the goals that 24 and 25 were supposed to in a ballistic flight and re-entry, and then go on to perhaps a deorbit burn test with Ship 26 is sort of my favourite theory so far.
Not sure if it was noticed last week or not. Just trying to find an image, but looks like they've put some plastic up around the base of Ship 29 over there to the right, as if they were maybe doing some work down under the skirt. I was trying to find an angle from last week to see if they had plastic up then or not, but I can't find a quick angle.
So its
Uh,
orientation's interesting too, with QD right around that side. I think last time a ship was here, the QD was over on this side.
They tend to do work in the skirts while the ships are on the ground as well. So they could be just preparing it for engine installation or doing some of the other work that they can do before the engine work comes into question. So maybe they're getting a head start over there while 28 is still kind of hogging the only stand that they can install the engines on. So, but yeah, it's a good sign that they're at least continuing with kind of the next couple of ships in line.
Yeah, it's becoming a real production line nowadays. There's still a lot of tile work. I don't think that's changed at all. No, it looks like the same. Tile work still needs to be completed. So yeah, not much going on there that we can see. Some nice angles here. HLS doesn't see any much change in the HLS area at all. There's a few of the local reporters and photographers have taken some nice images of that in the ground.
It is a very interesting spot for that nose cone, to be honest. Seems like it was just kind of shoehorned in there on the side, which kind of makes you wonder what the intent is. Are they trying to advertise that they have a nose variant there? Was that the most convenient place to put it for HLS demonstrations and presentation purposes, or and maybe there's an upcoming presentation that they wanted it nearby for? It's really interesting to see its location being right there.
There was a tent there that was now missing, right where that green grass astroturf is. So there was a presentation there. And Maria Pointer pointed out to me there were like 1,000 people over here for something the first night we were in, I believe. So that tent's been taken down. So there was a presentation, and that's probably potentially why it showed up.
Okay, good, thank you. And Todd, I was going to ask, how was it? I hear you stood just here at the Rocket Garden. How was that experience?
Yeah, the HLS nose cone makes for a great photo background. That's one good thing it's there for. I believe from what I heard about that White Tent Villa kid is that they had a full moon party or presentation. And that was the night before. So yeah, there was definitely something going on that weekend. But just being that close to those ships and seeing around the corners, and of course me trying to get pictures of every single thing I can, even if I didn't know what I was looking at, just didn't know what you'd catch. It was really close.
And how did the scale of the of everything hit you?
The scale is, I mean, it's just crazy. I've been watching streams. I've been watching the show for so long, and you try to get perspective of things. You look to a thing next to a truck, and it's that's so much bigger than the truck. But then when you're there, it's just I'm speechless. Still am, just thinking about how big things were. You no matter how much you watch, I don't think you can be prepared for it.
And you took your daughter. How was her weekend? She enjoy herself as well?
Yeah, no, I know she did. We went for Crowfest, and definitely we had the time of our life. The people were absolutely amazing. Everybody there, treated her like an equal, and were really unbelievably nice to her and me and everybody. Yeah, no, she really enjoyed the whole time. Both of us were just not ready to come home when we left. That's for sure.
Yeah, I've got nothing but good words to talk about our community with everyone. The support has been awesome. And Philly, you were down there as well. How was your trip to Crowfest?
Well, it was my fourth trip down there, and it was as exciting and enjoyable as the last three. I mean, the first one I got to see 15 launch, and had my fingers crossed that I'd see a launch down there this time, but no. But it seeing the changes over the 2.5 years it's been since I've been down there, because most of this was dirt when I was down there the last time or the first time. And it's just absolutely incredible what has happened there over the last 2.5 years. It's just amazing. And you got to go if you follow SpaceX, you got to get down there. It's just you got to get there. That's all I can say.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it looks like an awesome weekend. So this area seems to have stagnated a little bit. We don't really notice so much changes here. Perhaps this is some of the old gear and all the new inventories in the actual tent these days. And maybe this is just a bit of overflow out here. Okay, I think we... now for Sanchez, Joe, do you have any questions for Sanchez and donations, please?
Indeed. Michael Massy, $10 super chat. With the demise of the solar farm, what is the chance that Starbase will mount solar panels atop Star Factory assembly and integration buildings? Now, eyes and ears on the ground. Anthony Gomez did answer that in chat. Solar farm was taken to local storage. They'll be reusing it at some point, but we are still unsure where. Power demands for Massy's may move it there. So thanks, Anthony, for answering that for us. Rocket Profit came in with a $10 super chat at the end of the last round. Count me in. Ka, choo-choo. And Mauricio wanted me to acknowledge a PayPal donation from last week that did not get acknowledged. From Methane Man, $50 PayPal. Just wanted to give a little extra. And I want to thank Jim Cabot for another gifted membership. And Rocket Profit with 10. Anonymous with 5 gifted memberships. So thank you all for all that. And we can move along.
Okay, we'll go on to the build site and we'll start on the Megabay 2. So lovely distance shot there. Oh, now this is a photo. Didn't mean to put this in quite too well. This is a photo from Dave Avery showing the glass that has arrived, and we think it's for the Megabay.
And that's the frames that I was missing. They're ready to install that stuff pretty soon.
Yeah, it looks like it. So they haven't poured the concrete yet. You can see the mesh still in there. They've put a lot of the roof Z-girts on. The Americans call it Z-girts. Very good. And they've been putting the elevator sections in. I believe there's one more to go. And I'm thinking, Phil, they'll have one more section up in the actual area up here would be the landing.
Depending on the type of elevator it is, you need the turning blocks at the top, so you need another section at the top to support it, and the control equipment. So yeah, there might be just one more section on top that needs to go in.
So there's these two. That's not a good photo. There's these two sections here that look like they may fit that bill.
Yeah, right. The structure on that says center block right there. See how you got the 3 beams across the top on the flat surface right there. Yeah.
Okay. And speaking of glass, so the glass is all staged here. So at least I'll lift the glass up once the concrete's been poured to get it out of this area because it sort of appears to be in the way in this area. And we've got that platform still to go in Megabay 1.
I believe it was Max Q did a count on the glass, and there was about 122 frames it possibly looked like, and I think that there was 122 or 123 used on Megabay 1, so definitely looking like it's going to be the glass for Megabay.
And just in case you're wondering how to change a light bulb in Megabays, well, I guess we use a big man lift. I'm kidding, it's to be installing something, I guess. Okay, keep moving along. We get to see booster 12. We don't get to see booster 12 very often. We get to see booster 12 here now. It's tucked right in the front left corner there. So we've got booster 10 on the stand, booster 11 at Macy's, 12 and 13 over here getting built on the right hand side. And we can see ship's midlock, ship 32's midlock section has been put on the turntable and getting stacked as we speak.
Pretty mind blowing how quickly they are getting these ships put together. It seemed like just the other day, 29 was rolling out to be tested at Massy's, and now we're all the way up to 32.
Yeah, it's a definite production line, assembly line going on. So we can't see the aft section of ship 32 yet, so it's more than likely still in Star Factory. In fact, there's not a lot of change in the ring yard at all, really. We can see ship 30. Let me think for a sec. Ship 30 and 31. Ship 30, sorry, at the front here. Still got a bit of tile work to go. And 32 down the back there. There's heaps of tile work to go.
Not sure if it was mentioned last week, but they are starting to cover the load points on ship 30. They have the steel plates on the steel side, and they've also seemingly put some plates over the top of the tile side holes, but they've yet to tile them.
So that means we're going to have to use that new lifting jig Mark II. And someone spotted perhaps a second set of the lifting jig version 2 coming on a truck. It appears to be a new lifting jig. We can see the elevator pieces in there. And yeah, Phil, that very much does look like a landing and the winches to sit on top. Okay, moving right along. So we get to see a few different angles in here. We can see the table. Now this photo is more clear. We're speculating in show and tell whether the clamp arms have been put in, but it doesn't look like they've been put in yet.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any of those clamp arms in that photo.
We know the platform is in there.
Actually, maybe that far side might have. Is there like a glint off of the clamp right there? Is that? It's really hard to tell, but it looks like at least some of those might be missing still.
This is a better image for those tile covers. I mean, for the lifting point covers. So it looks like Megabay 2 is going to get its glass, or at least put up on top there fairly soon. I think by memory they put the glass up on top of Megabay 2 also for a long time. The glass sat sitting up on the concrete up there. Is that correct, fella?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please?
They did Megabay 1. They lifted the glass panels up on top of the concrete a long time before they installed them.
I believe they did, yes.
So we're speculating now when they put that platform in here, we notice there's a curved edge on either side of that those platforms. That's not showing this picture. There's a curved edge on this side and a curved edge on this side, leading us to think that that platform will be here, leading us to think that there'll be the third ring in the center here. I think Chrome Kiwi was doing some scaling and worked out, or was it you, Ryan, that there is room behind the platforms to move engines around behind the platforms.
I believe, yeah, Chrome Kiwi made a render showing what it might look like if there were 3 of those engine installation stands there along the back. And yeah, they do seem to fit in there pretty well. And the fact that they put this second stand over in kind of the back right would kind of imply that maybe the last one would go in the middle. And we do see one more, waiting to be moved over here once it's complete. So yeah, it's very possible. The curves are a little offset, possibly implying that that one that would go in the middle could maybe be, pushed further back or pulled further forward. We know that they keep the Raptor engines in the lean tube kind of behind the Megabay here. So I kind of have a feeling if they do, it might. It's hard to tell with that other one over there, but it kind of seems to me like they might actually have the middle one pushed forward to kind of give extra room behind there. Um, but yeah, it's seemingly looking like they might have all 3 of those engine installation stands here in this Megabay, which would make sense because of the access to the Raptors. So again, that kind of begs the question, the 2 black stands, or are those going to be destined for the new Megabay, or are those going to be transport stands, or are they going to be some sort of a test stand? But I think we can rule out the idea that they would potentially end up in this Megabay as well, because I think we've got turntables in either forward corner, and then if we've got 3 engine installation stands along the back, that pretty well fills this building.
Stephanie, can you go back to the platform that's sitting out on the ground, please?
You want to see that?
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to see if the curved pieces were at the same level. And it looks like one might be slightly lower than the other, just slightly.
I think it's offset. One of them's pushed further back in the frame, the other one's pulled
Yeah,
forward.
yeah, I think you're right there. Yeah, that's
It's hard to
what it is.
There's a
tell.
shadow.
So there's a railing that goes across the front of the top part, and then there's a railing that's kind of parallel on that bottom part there. So if we go back up to the picture of the one inside of the Megabay, can we compare and see maybe which orientation this might end up at? Okay, so the railing's across the front of this one, it looks like, where those stairs would be. So the stand then that's outside would actually be flipped potentially 180 degrees. So if we go back down to that one that's outside, so that would imply that the middle one would be forward, further forward. So it would actually be more in the center of the Megabay versus along the back wall.
And like I say, it kind of makes sense to give access to that doorway back
Yeah.
there.
So
Okay,
yeah,
last week
it's
we
like
saw.
about 3 of them in there.
Yeah, yep. I mean, a speculation could be that a black stand sits in the middle of both, but as it seems they're only building 3 stands, white stands, it sort of points more to the fact that this will be a white stand in here. So last week we saw these panels removed. They seem to put them back again. So perhaps these are the doors they put in, and that's why they took the panels up. I'm not sure. They had them stripped right back to this post here.
They may be adding those doors with the idea that they will eventually add a big door here to the main opening, and maybe they need a little bit of a wider. I'm assuming both of those doors would open, so you could maybe get a pallet, on a forklift possibly through there. Not sure how tall that door is, but maybe a smaller forklift or even kind of just a pallet jack would be able to bring equipment in and out. So assuming that there is a big door and it is shut, they might want some additional access inside the building.
All right, I thought that might have been attached to a stairway section. So it looks like the work for this big crane's coming to a conclusion here soon with this Megabay. Wonder what they're going to do with the crane afterwards. This is an enhanced photo. It's just the light level's been moved up. So perhaps that helps you with the orientation again. It does seem to be, that looks like the center of the curve there. It does seem to be more forward, like you said, for the center of this curve. And we can see booster 10 there with plenty of room for the engines when it comes out. You can see that door quite clearly back there.
Will be very interesting to see 3 boosters kind of working in parallel, getting their engines installed. Seems like that's a step that takes kind of the longest to get through, because not only do you have to put the engines in there, but then you also have to put in all the shielding, and any of the the blast protection between the different engines, as they've kind of made optimizations for that after the first flight. So it's a pretty time-consuming step. So having kind of 3 stands for this will hopefully help speed that up quite a bit.
Perhaps booster 10 is delaying the rest of its shielding and that until they actually do the flight 2 to see how booster 9 handles the flight.
I suppose another
Hey,
benefit of
Ryan.
all of these dedicated stands is that they can actually house the boosters inside of the mega bays versus leaving them outside at the rocket garden as well. So, and what were you going to say, Todd?
Maybe for you or Philip Kid. The Raptors, when they're brought in from the factory, when they're first get there, they go into the back, right? They don't drive them in the main doors. There's like access to the Raptor room from the back, correct?
Yeah, I believe they pull a truck around kind of the back side of the mega bay, and then they'll take them off of the trailer. I believe Starship Gazer actually caught some photos. I believe was it maybe last week. I believe a trailer showed up that had 3 engines on it. I believe they were center Raptors because they already had the gimbal hardware installed on them. But yeah, they pull them off the pallets and then they put them in the back room there, which is temperature controlled and everything. So it's ideal to store those components in.
Yeah, we
Cool.
saw
Thank
a
you.
door. We saw a door on that side over there of that little lean-to when during construction. It was on this end, if I remember correctly. Okay, ship 32 is coming along nicely. Only one section to go, and yeah, like Ryan's saying, it's pretty amazing how quickly they're going these days.
It's hard to tell, if they, building a ship to be full size is relatively easy as they bring the sections in and they weld them together. There's still a lot of busy work that has to occur to hook all of the wiring together, get all of the autogen pipes welded together. So there's a lot of busy work. Just because a ship is at its full size doesn't mean it's anywhere near being done. But it is it's pretty interesting to see how quickly they've been able to optimize the process here with the turntables, as well as the different stacking methods that they have now. So definitely speeds things up.
Yeah, they're using that double lift where they lift this section up and then attach with some smaller slings down to the next section and lift it all up as one and then lower it down to get welded. And we can see that turntable sitting out because they're having to use the crane, and the crane can't be used in the various sides here, which is must be a bit of a pain in the neck for SpaceX. Leading to speculation, a lot of people saying they're going to pull this one down and perhaps use Megabay too for ship construction in the interim. I guess eventually they'll need to think about what they're going to do with this Megabay 1. Sorry, High Bay.
Yeah, seeing how they're kind of optimizing their space inside Megabay 1 so well right now, I I wouldn't be surprised if they started using ships inside the Megabay 2 at this point, um, to at least help out with hardware. Because I think the maximum, well, I believe they've fit 4 ships inside the high bay before, but I think the working environment's pretty tight at that point. I think 3 ships are really kind of the optimal number that they can really have in there and actually, get a considerable amount of work done. So it would be really interesting to see, if they can have, 5 or 6 ships inside of a mega bay. That would definitely increase the build cadence as well.
Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so I was going to say there's 4 boosters in there, but there's only 3 boosters in there. Because this mega bay, because you can't use the corners, their 4 ships is a bit awkward in this area, especially when they're stacking a ship. They really need this stand to be out in the middle of the bay to allow the sections to come in.
Yep.
To allow it to be lifted, I mean.
Yeah, if that could be in the back corner, it would be ideal. But yeah, the crane is not able to reach into that area very well. So yeah, not the greatest use of space, but the as they've improved their operations, they've kind of learned from different mistakes. So
That's a great angle there. From the air, we can see the slides are in, of course, because the booster's there. You can see the stand and everything.
So one question I would have is if they end up having 3 of those installation stands along the back wall, how would they get engines to kind of the booster, here where booster 10 is? Um, because it looks like they have doors along a couple of the sides, so they could potentially bring engines in from kind of the front door here and kind of go straight to that door over there. I would assume there's another access door kind of on the back side, 1 or 2. I'm not sure how many, doors, I guess, are on these engine installation stands, but um, they'd probably want to have, one on the front and one on the back. That way they can, move engines, through and under as they need to. That way they can get them from one side of a booster to the other. If one is in the middle of construction, and needs an engine on the other side.
You
Well,
mean
wouldn't they
there's
just sequence them in from the front to the back?
I believe so. These stands are actually tall enough so that I believe they can actually lift engines up, install them, lower the platform down, and they can wheel new ones in, put them in the correct positions, lift the platform up, and rinse, repeat that same process over again. I guess what I was more saying is that for right now, we don't really know where these doors are located. I'm guessing that there's a door kind of just to the left of the cursor, in that opening to the left there. Yeah, I'm assuming that there's a door there that they could wheel engines in, and I'm guessing there's one probably 90 degrees rotated to the right, so it would be kind of on the back side of that platform, so that they could potentially have those two doorways that they could wheel, engines into. The main question would be if they have all 3 back here. They would need access to the back at least for the ease of moving Raptors into either of the 3 stands. But then they also may have options to move them in the front as well. So
yeah, it
might
makes
get a good
sense.
look of that once they put the middle one in there, if it does indeed go there.
Yeah, it makes sense that they could bring the engines in from behind. Like you say, they can put them in any order. And I thought originally maybe there's actually room to bring the Raptors around the sides. Perhaps we were talking that there's platforms in the corners here, but perhaps they can go underneath all that and come around
Good
the
point as well.
sides.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to see a lot of concrete going on here one day soon. Okay, so we can move on to Star Factory. A big change in Star Factory. We've got footings, and quite substantial footings. But I've been told they're the same size footings as what was put under these columns, so there's nothing unusual there. We saw some concrete getting ripped up here last week or the week before, and that's obviously now to put these 2 footings in, which is the next one, and that will allow them to finish this last section off. And like the rest of the Star Factory, they seem to do this last section after they build all the rest of the section rather than doing it at the same time. I'm not sure why they did that. You can see here the posts getting put in, ready for that last section. And that'll line up with these. So they've got some concrete by the look of it poured in the bottom of the holes, ready to put some rebar on top to pour those footings. They seem to do that in places where they're going to put rebar to sort of shore up the ground before they put the rebar on top. And we can see the conduits have been run through a lot of the places. A bit more needs to be completed in this particular section.
It's interesting looking at that footing pattern that there appear to be footings that are missing in the sequence, like right where your hand is, where your pointer is right there. And then on the upper row, there's a footing missing there and one there.
Yes. I thought maybe because sometimes you see twice as many columns on the outside walls here, but that spacing in there will continue, which appears needs to be this spacing here. So does that mean, Phil, that they don't need a footing for this in between column post?
Yeah, because it's not missing on the inside, yeah. But then look at this last one down on the left. They're close together. Up on the upper one.
Yeah, that seems to fit that spacing though, doesn't it? That's that spacing there would be that spacing there. Like I say, I think they're missing. Those 3 are missing, or 4.
I suppose the question is, are they missing, or are they going to be doing something different with the frame structure in this area?
Yeah, structure. Yeah, we don't know what the production facility underneath this looks like yet, so there might be a requirement that that column they overspan it for whatever reason.
I'm not sure what it might. I was just wondering if would a nose section, fit between those vertical columns at that spacing on the right. I'm not looking at the ring sections in the ring yard. I think it could. It would be a little tight, but I think it definitely could. Probably not with flaps unless they, rotated it. But yeah, one thought is maybe they have that spacing wider so they can actually shift nose cones from maybe one side to another. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see if they dig that area up and add another footing or not. But yeah, that spacing is odd.
I mean, the interesting thing I would like to see is a production layout of what the ring watchers think that how they're going to prep this factory from material in the material to finished product out. I think that's a project somebody needs to put together. It'd be nice to see that.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Or we need somebody to do an interview and get a walk around, something.
I think Todd was relating that this building's quite a lot taller. Once again, like everything at Starbase is quite a lot taller than you would imagine. Todd, is that right?
Yeah, when we got there late at night because we knew 26 was going to be dropped the next morning, and we wanted to at least get a chance to see a full stack. And so we went straight out there, even after flying for I don't even know how long. We drove 5 hours, went straight out there, and I know Megabays are huge, and I kind of expected that. But when I got next to that, as we were driving by, that's where it really hit me that this stuff's huge. It doesn't compare to what I've been seeing in the photos. It was so big. It was all lit up because they were still working inside there. But that was the first real thing that we could see was the actual factory.
Amazing. So we can see the front here. We suspected might have been glass from the renders, but that doesn't look like there's going to be any glass in this section with all the Z-girts being put in place. And we still have cross bracing in here, but that's for shear loading. I think Phil was telling me that's for shear loading for the wind.
Wind and lateral motion from the crane moving back and forth.
Yep, we can see a bridge crane runner here and its mate, runway, and its mate over there. So it's pretty obvious there's going to be a very high bridge crane through here. And it looks like they're leaving a door open here of some description. Obviously not big enough for anything like ship related to get through, but it looks like they've deliberately ended the Z-girts here and here.
Might just be so they can go from either side of the wall kind of as they're maybe working on it. Just like a temporary opening to kind of move stuff in and out of maybe.
Yep, that sounds right. They're well and truly going ahead with the cladding. We still haven't seen anything going on with the ends of these conduits yet. And there's a fair bit of soils, different types of soils being staged over here. Interesting, these low points seem to have some plumbing. It's been suggested that this is to drain water out of these sections with that pipe, and perhaps this plumbing, which we can see more of sitting over here. So, Phil, what's your thoughts on the green pipes here? Would it be to do with drainage of water?
I don't know if they're trying to dewater it, but there's no real sign of any dewatering pumps or a lot of vertical things. It could be that the green piping is potentially for the roof drains, for flat roof drains. I don't know. There could be, a couple of options for that.
Okay, thanks.
But there are no real roof drains in the other roofs, so it's hard to say. It's like crazy. But there's got to be somewhere they got to collect the rainwater off of that roof and get it out of there.
Do we know, is it sloped all the way from here? Is it sloped all the way back in one slope, or is there a peak here?
I believe there's a gutter that runs along that joint there, and I think when we were looking at it when it was going in, it didn't. The roofs don't connect. They're not. It's not a smooth transition, as you can see there.
Okay, so perhaps there's a box gutter there for this section.
It's not a roof design that I would recommend.
And they'd get like a lot of rain when it rains here, don't they? Looks like there may be something in here as well. So they're moving ahead with insulation.
It's got to be more than just one draining between each of those sections somewhere. That's a lot of water to get rid of in a controlled manner.
I think some of the piping we saw going in when they were doing the underground, some of that is probably roof leaders that collect the water off of those scupper drains.
Yeah, a couple of inches of rain over that big square footage. See, a couple of mil of rain over that square meterage would add up to a lot of litres or gallons of water.
I mean, if you look at the end of the first section of the building they put up, there were a ton of roof leaders on the outside. You can't see them in this picture, but on that edge at the other end, on the first section, there you go, up on the upper right. Yeah, they're let's look at all those roof leaders, right? That whole roof is draining to that side. That's why there's so many of them.
And we can expect to see them here. You can see there may even be there. Oh no, the pipes aren't there, but everything's ready for the pipes.
But there's less than 50% of the ones that are at the other end.
Yep. So we see that in this construction a bit that every section is unique.
It's SpaceX. It's very unique. There's no question about it.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. Okay, we're pretty well done in that area. We're a little bit ahead of time, but it's fine. Not much over in this area changed that we can notice. There's more of those downpipes. In Australia, we'd call those downpipes, but leaders, whatever. I did notice in the past water draining off this roof would create a little bit of erosion out. I think through here there was an erosion through here and it was draining out through here. They seem to have fixed that. But they definitely don't. Oh, do they? Are they downpipes leaders already installed?
I
With
believe
little boxes on top.
they should be.
Very good. Okay, before we go to the village, Joe, have you got some questions and donations, please?
Indeed, I do. I want to thank Robert Burkett for a $10 super chat. No message, but thanks for the support. Jacques, 11 euros. Thank you, RGB, for the outstanding episodes. That's Jacqueline, not our ring watcher, Jax. Crane Man wanted to ask, did you find out why it takes so long for scaffolding at Megabay 1 to be completely removed? I want to know, too.
Yeah, well, it's still there. I think they removed a little bit. They've removed this section of scaffolding, but seem to have left the front section for some reason. Correct. It's a good question, Crayman.
And then I Am Jaded Hobo asks, will the Raptor install stand near the Rocket Garden still be relevant when the new install stands go inside the Megabay?
Well, so they were talking about Ship 28. What Ship 28 sitting on? Well, it's specifically for ships, and perhaps they'll put them into Megabay 2, like we were discussing earlier. So is that correct? He was asking about. They were asking about the Ship 28 standing on. Is that correct?
I predict it will go away based on my discussion with the gentleman who's responsible for Starship production. His comment to me was quality controls are their biggest issue, and the dirt, the dust, the wind, and the ability to control the environment is critical for them to get these buildings built and the doors on them so that they can get in an enclosed environment. And so I believe that exterior engine stand is going to definitely go away once they get the facilities, these Megabay, finished.
So that kind of leads to think that they will be using Megabay 2 for ships, like Ryan was suggesting earlier. Okay, any more questions, Joe?
Yeah, I just got one from Wayne W. Could the green pipe be from bathrooms which absolutely needed to be treated? Green pipe is standard around me for sanitary sewage.
Phila?
I'm sorry, I missed the question. I apologize.
Is the green pipe could be for sewage, could be for amenities here in that person's area. They tend to use green for sewage piping.
Could be, but I don't believe we've seen anything that's been there's no septic here, so the answer to that is no. There's no sewage system in this location, so any amenities are going to be in a building that's separate from the main building somehow. So no, I don't think it's for sewage.
And to answer an earlier question, the door isn't on this side. It's actually on that area there. So that's where the door is there for the raptors to go into the raptor roost. Raptor roost? Is that where they're at the perch for the raptors? Raptor coop?
I do not remember the official name of that part of the building.
And Cindy's asking if we have anything new or fun and exciting in the ring yard. I don't think we really touched on today, really.
No, it doesn't seem to have changed much. We've still got a couple of articles that got holes cut in them. We did see that mid-lock section get moved. So, Senti, no, not really. All seems to be about the same. They seem to be bringing them straight from the factory straight through a little bit.
All
Perhaps
right,
the
my
ring
panel
yard.
is clear. We can move on.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Joe, and thanks YouTube chat for involvement. So no, it doesn't look, Senti, like there's much change in that area at all, except like the glass arrived. It doesn't even look like the rings have been moved around much, the bases. Moving right along, we go to this pipe production building. Doesn't seem to be much change in this area, except all the lock stuff and the orbital tank farm's been moved. This doesn't look like a hippo part. They seem to have three pipes on the manifold. It looks too big to be the nitrogen manifold underneath the hippos. We can see a lot more, I believe, some more piping ready for the new horizontal tanks over at the launch site. Max Q Jake picked up, there's some valve assemblies here. So that's ready for probably Macy's and some basket strainers.
Those basket strainers were moved in from the street. They were out there where the black pipes are last week. There was quite a few of them out there, and there's still a couple, but some of them definitely got moved back there for getting ready to do something with them.
Yeah, obviously some prefab ready for probably once again for Macy's. And we can see some more piping here at this end as well, getting prefabbed, which I don't think we saw last week. And we saw those buildings go in last week. A little bit of gravel work, not a lot different here. They've spread that gravel out, ready for their new driveways. Doing something on an aerial, bit of trivial stuff. Bit hard to see on these long distance shots, but yeah, you can see that new pipe plumbing there. All the solar panels are still sitting here. I think this all looks much the same as last week. Okay, onto the village. So they're putting some services in here for the new Aerostream Park. Seems to be set out a little bit different this time. So I'm guessing they're putting in these pedestals for the airstreams for the power and water.
Pretty big trenches for just a couple of pipes. I'm sure there's more still to go in, but yeah, those trenches seem pretty big for just a couple of pipes in them.
Yeah, they've installed some of the pipes already. Maybe there's more pipes than we think. Perhaps there's some drainage in there as well. And they're still building houses. We can see that's a duplex with a concrete firewall in between, as this one had. These appear to be not duplexes because there's not the middle foundation trench. We can see this one is a duplex, that's slightly larger size. It has a centre wall as well. And this one's not a duplex, so a bit of variety. Something we can notice here is the pumps. They're pumping water out of the ground here. So there's one there. There's one over here. And there's a big one here. And they're all pumping water out into the flats. And there's another X. I guess that's just coincidental.
Really is
Well, plenty
amazing
of
to
work
see this
there.
area grow as large as
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
gotten here. Just in the past couple of months, it seems like it's just completely exploded with a lot of new houses, a lot of new construction.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot more employees with the new Star Factory opened up. And we still see them bringing in employees every day, quite a few times throughout the day with the coach, with buses. So perhaps in the future, those people that are coming in on coaches would be able to live out here instead. There's an expansion of the tiny homes in here. I'm guessing it'll be for the tiny homes. It seems different to the rest of the area.
Yeah, the tiny homes are the one thing I didn't say, wow, those are bigger than I thought. Those are really small, tiny homes.
Okay, so that area hasn't changed much. I don't think there's much more going on in the village. Obviously some groundwork, getting ready to build some more homes. Bit more of an angle where we can see some of the plumbing or some of the services have been put in already. And it seems to be sort of space. Go on.
Is that how the Airstreams were set up in the last one, or is this going to be a bunch more tiny homes? Because it looks like the Airstreams are stacked in there more, or is there maybe each line is servicing 2 Airstreams?
Yeah, I think you'll find a pedestal on either side here. So there'll be an airstream here, and another airstream here, and here, perhaps with a significant gap in between some of the rows, like in between here, and not necessarily over here. There's not a gap. So perhaps we'll see this sort of pattern. So it's probably behind the icon. Can see this sort of pattern in this area, and this sort of pattern in this area.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Sometimes that makes sense. Okay.
And
Right.
yeah, the gray in the corner is indeed not a basketball court, like Zach and I were kind of throwing out there a couple weeks back. So yeah, that does appear to be the new landing point for the hovercrafts. So looks like they may have abandoned the old one, and this will be the new one for going forward.
We can still see the little hovercraft still over there. So yeah, Ryan, how was the taste of the crow?
No, it's cool to see optimizing, changing the way they've done some stuff here. So hopefully they'll pretty this area up, add some more grasses and some stuff, and make it look as the other one kind of looks as well.
Yeah, they're going to need to do something. It must be awfully dusty when it's dry, with the hovercrafts pushing out all the air underneath their skirt. So the crane yard still looks about the same. Just a couple of extra images.
One of the things we noticed when we were driving back in the village, it was really neat that they had a lot of stuff for Halloween. You could see that they had a pumpkin giveaway for the employees. They had, I think there was a guy setting up a haunted house in the old motel. It was just kind of neat to see him, doing things for the family, and we never see that from up here. But that was kind of cool.
Nice. Okay, that's all for the build site and the village. Joe, can we finish up on donations and questions for the build site?
I just want to thank Sharpie for a $10 super chat. He says, keep up the good work or good job, RGV team, with the trophy. And Rocket Profit matches that. Yes, what Sharpie just said. And that's all I got, buddy. We're ready to move along.
Okay, very much appreciate all the positive feedback we're getting. That's awesome. Okay, build site. Launch site. My tongue's not working this morning. We'll start over the suborbital tank farm area. Okay, I can see they're continuing some work with the electrical installation, putting bolts in. So they'll connect into now. Correct me, is they electrical bolts or are they drainage bolts? We've got to tie some of this electrical. Looks like there's still conduit work to come into these bolts from across the road.
They were electrical vaults when they first went in, right after 15 or right before 15, right around that time period. They were electrical vaults right there.
Thank you. They're doing some digging with the back truck here. We can see this drainage has been extended out to here, getting ready to put the driveway over the top here.
Yeah, it looks
And
like that
lots of
gate
conduit.
is moving over a little bit. Believe the gate previously was a little bit kind of in line with would have been that wall coming down at the top left, kind of parallel. It kind of came straight here. So obviously there's a wall now where that gate was. So I believe they're actually shifting this gate over a little bit to kind of conform to the new curved wall that they've built.
Yeah, it comes straight through here.
Yep.
See that white stripe where your pointer is? Can you zoom in right down at the road level? There, zoom in on that, please. Yeah, I wanted to see
here.
what was happening with the wall along Route 4, because on the left-hand side it appears to stop, and that looks like where right there. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's probably where the new entrance is definitely going to go.
Yeah, just in here. Yep. Makes sense. To be straight in line there with the wall. Maybe we'll see more wall, or maybe not. So, Todd, where were you when Ship 26 rolled out? Were you up here? You got very close to Ship 26, is that correct?
Yeah, so we were right by the gate where it comes out. There's some concrete pedestals down there for the electrical vaults. We were pretty much standing, right there. We were right back there. So we were right in front of it.
And did you get asked to move, or did you get ignored, or you were lucky to stand right beside it? I hear you were very, very close.
Luckily, my daughter was in the car cooling off because it was very hot that weekend. And I went back to get her as the sheriff was pushing people back, and he totally missed us. So we kind of were right by Rover 2 over there, and on the concrete pedestals, just kind of standing there being quiet to not get noticed. Other people were able to sneak back, but he never saw us, so it was pretty cool.
A great vantage point. Okay, so yeah, a bit of wall work still going on. We see some formwork going in there. That's formwork, yeah. So it's getting there's all the formwork that's getting advanced. Okay, I still haven't seen what's going to pop up on this. Remember we saw a trench when this was first put in. Still haven't seen what's going to happen there yet. I'm hoping for some more lights. We can see the wall here's got all its formwork up. But I don't... Is that poured pillar? It's not poured yet, is it? Or is it?
I don't think it's been poured yet. I believe they put the forms up this week for that second tier.
Yeah, it's significantly lifting that in height. Yeah, it's definitely still all braced ready. So they'll brace it on one side, then put some bracing through the concrete to hold the back bracing. Is that right, Phil?
That's correct.
I want to say that tank looks like the tank that they pulled down at Sanchez, but I'm sure it's not. Okay, not much different changes there. Okay, under the middle section. So we can see some new, significantly wider stands. And they've put concrete in those spots where they're digging up, ready for those stands to run around this side. We had some pictures last week. Todd had a picture through here. We could see how substantial the steel was, but we didn't see these ones. We can see they're quite bigger. So it'd be interesting to see how they go, and there's a lot of them. So there's more of these these concrete pads still to go for the rest of these. I guess we'll see them run along the front here and further along the front of the tank farm.
I can't tell, are those newer stands, are those actually wider and shorter than the other ones, or are they about the same? They look about the same height, I think. Okay.
They
Yeah,
seem to have
interesting.
the same structure on top, but yes, a lot
Yeah.
wider in the bases, like on one side.
I wonder, could they be wider? So it looks like they're gonna bring those pipes kind of parallel to the existing wall here. It looks like they're gonna turn them. I wonder if they are wider so they can still maybe drive like something underneath them to get back like next to these tanks. I'm assuming that's gonna then turn again and go parallel kind of over these shipping containers or maybe right behind them along the tanks. So I wonder if they still maybe want access, underneath them. Maybe that's why they're wider.
Okay, that's an interesting thought.
Because I would assume
We,
the ends of the tanks will hang over these footings similar to the tank here, so that wall that kind of goes, well, the stands that will feed along the side of these will probably have to go in line with basically between those tanks and kind of the shipping containers there to the bottom right. Yeah, right about there. So I'll have to see if they break out the concrete in that area as well.
yeah, I'd imagine we're going to see more of these little concrete pads put in, yes, through here and then along there. We can see they're working under here, so perhaps they're finally going to plumb this tank in. And it's been suggested maybe this is argon or a neutral gas, nitrogen to pump into this tank. Look, it might have me hooked up on there. To, if they want to cut or grind, maybe they fill the tank up with some inert gas. Because it would have already had some hydrocarbons in it.
They might require a pressure test before they can activate it again because it's been moved, and that might be a way of testing it.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea too. No work on the wall yet up here.
Did you ever figure out what that trench was for that they dug? It looks like, is that maybe sheets of plywood they have over it right now?
Yeah, I'd say that they've left that trench exposed, ready to. Well, it's one theory, ready to add Rio starter bars up into the wall, and it does line
Okay.
up with that wall.
Yeah.
Which has nothing to do with the methane wall. The methane wall is here to contain any leak, but it's odd that they didn't continue that through here. Perhaps they can't do that yet until they do something with the methane filling point.
I hope those sheets of plywood are Tapconed down. Otherwise, we're going to get a bunch of brown kites during the first launch, kind of shooting over to the suborbital tank farm.
They're going to want to be bolted down quite firmly, you'd think, for that reason particularly.
They don't quite look like it, but hopefully they are.
It doesn't kind of look like it, does it? Yeah.
They have to be, or they would have been long gone by now. We would have seen those flying because it's like windy out there every day, it seems like.
Good point, Todd. Yep. So these photos, we can't quite tell if they've put more of the high pressure manifolds in. There's one of the photos you might see in a second that it kind of looks like they haven't done any extra work here. The scaffold's still here. This annoying tank section still here. The pumps here, they've been pumping water to fill it all up. So we might have touched on this before. They back the water tank is into here, and then they use this pump to pump the water from the tankers into the system. And was questioned during show and tell why this pump isn't built in. You would imagine everywhere else. It's surprising that this pump isn't somehow built in. Any thoughts on that, Ryan?
I wonder if it's just a matter of maybe they had that pump laying around and it just wasn't worth it to add a second pump right now. Maybe they were waiting to figure out if they would reconfigure the drop off point later. Once you start using something that's brand new, you kind of figure out like if there's maybe an optimization, or a difference, that would maybe make it flow a little bit better. So they may have been just waiting to kind of move that around. Maybe they want the flexibility of actually being able to kind of move the pump a little bit, side to side, depending on the day. Yeah, not really sure on that, but yeah, I think eventually we'll probably see something a little bit more permanent kind of spring up for offloading that water.
And do you have a current model for this deluge farm?
I have, yeah, it's a decent model. It's still missing some of the smaller pipes as they were kind of reconfiguring things and adding new stuff. But I have a lot of the major pipes on my model. Yes.
So those little pipes in between tanks and what have you. Because there are a lot of actuators. Some of these actuators are hydraulic or pneumatic, and they seem to have little pipes running to them all.
I believe all of those red ones are. I believe they're driven by an electric pump. I could be wrong on that, but I think they are electric.
Yep. And these pipes under here are suggested there to help lead the system to fill up the pipe work. Is that correct?
Yeah, a lot of those pipes there. There's two pipes that go into the big white pipes, and that allows them to feed water over the elevated elbow. So essentially, what they do is they fill basically the pipe from the tank farm all the way out to the orbital launch mount and the plate, and they basically fill it up so the water is starting to push out of the top of the plate slightly. And they do that by opening some valves here. You can actually see them if you move your cursor straight down. There's kind of some red, a little bit to the right there. So there's some valves there that actually pull the water out of that large pipe, and it kind of bypasses the elevated elbows, and that allows them to fill the system downstream. So when they open up the valves here on the gas system, kind of just to the right, all that gas rushes into the water tanks, and that then pushes the water to the top of the elbow and then up and over. So the water doesn't actually come out of the plate under the launch mount until all of that pipe has been purged of air, and then it's basically solid water. So it's kind of a hydraulic effect of the water pushing down the pipes.
Yeah, it's quite spectacular when they turn it on. The air coming out of these valves on top, it goes. It's quite spectacular.
Yep, that's actually, yeah, that's what you see is the air purging out. They leave those valves open just long enough for the water to start shooting out. Then they close them, and at that point, the system is basically primed, and then the water just continues to go. until the shut-off command is given, and then we see the red valves open at the top of the tanks, and the excess gas gets vented to atmosphere. So it's a pretty interesting system. It moves a lot of water and doesn't require a large water tower. So kind of a simplistic mantra in some ways that SpaceX has going with this.
And once it's operating with the valves open here, it would be as reliable as a water tank, as some would suggest that a elevated water tank using pure gravity there's no way anything can fail. But once these valves are open, it's fairly fail-proof as well once the system's running, because it's got multiple valves. So even if a valve doesn't operate properly, there's plenty of other valves to push the gas. And once these gas tanks are venting into the tanks, nothing's going to stop the water from flowing at all.
Yeah, it's got a lot less failure points in some ways. It's simplistic in some other ways. But this isn't the first time that SpaceX has actually used a system like this. I believe it's maybe Launch Complex 40. I believe they use a very similar system to actually produce the water deluge for the Falcon 9 rocket.
Okay, we'll move on to the tower. The OLM. So we did finally get to see what these little, you can't see them here, these little metal things sticking out. There's a great big net underneath the OLM right now, and they're using those little tabs for that. Any thoughts on what that net is, Ryan?
So yeah, they added a net to we saw them add some steel cable that kind of ran the height of the legs pretty much on every leg. Not too long ago. I think it might have been maybe a couple weeks ago. It's kind of a new addition. They didn't really touch it. And then I believe it was last night they brought out it's basically like think of it like a hexagon with kind of the edges extruded, so it's kind of like a star type pattern. And they actually laid it down flat underneath the launch mount, and they hooked it up to each of the wires, and then pulled it up, and it's actually kind of hanging under the launch mount right now. And I believe the idea behind it is that the net should catch any debris from falling off of the work platform. As they do have the work platform up there underneath the booster right now, and I believe it's essentially just a debris mitigation aspect. In my opinion, it seems a little late to be testing that out. It probably could have come in handy several weeks back, but I suppose it's good to see some other stuff, be installed that will help with keeping that plate clean, because they do clean that plate pretty good before tests. But yeah, keeping it as clean as possible or prevent any falling damage would be nice. I am curious to see what they do with the steel cabling that kind of runs vertically. I have a feeling that could get a little melty upon a launch, so we'll have to see if they remove the steel cables. They'll probably leave the mount points since they're kind of welded to the legs, but it'll be interesting to see if they pull the cabling off between launches.
And we can see the strafe covers have been taken off the ends, so they must be working on whatever's underneath there. That seems to be a section with a lid on the edge on the very end. Same as this one. So, what's under these? There are only these two. What's under these two in particular, Ryan?
So those two have the new the larger CO2 tank. I believe it was 10 times bigger than what they had before. So Booster 7 had what basically appeared like two pipe sections with the ends capped off. And we didn't really know what they were doing with them at the time. But after launch, it kind of came to light that they were storing CO2 in those, and they had piped those into the engine bay to try and purge out, the surrounding, flammable gases if the engines were leaking or if there was a fire. obviously with Booster 7 that it didn't quite work that well, so they increased the capacity. So we have two big steel tanks. They're not a COPV because they're not composite and they're not wrapped, but it's basically two large steel tanks that they have underneath there, and they actually have them over in the inventory area right now, I believe, for is it maybe Booster 11, I think. But yeah, those are primarily covering just a new tank that they put together.
Last week we saw one of them staged outside the front of Megabay one as well. So yeah, looking ready to launch, really. So they destacked it again. So one idea is they had the hot stage ring off and did some adjusting, and then put the hot stage ring back on, and then lifted ship 25 back on top, perhaps just to make sure, double check everything's correct, ready for launch. So when they arm the FTS, they can be sure they can just quickly put the ship up on top and all will be well. Then fill her up, and excitement guaranteed moment.
Yeah, the last stack appeared to be one that wasn't going to be very permanent. They did not appear to put the soft lines, as I call them, connected to the ship from the QD. They have the actual QD system that interfaces with the side of the ship, but then there's also a couple of pipe connections underneath the QD that they seemingly only use for kind of a long-term stack and testing configuration. And I do not believe they hooked those up during the last stack, so it was pretty evident that it wasn't going to be a long stack, and likely, like you said, it was probably just to make sure that they could sort out any potential issues with alignment of the hostage ring before they, you know, I imagine the next flight will be similar to Flight 1, where they'll get approval, they'll throw on the flight termination system, and they'll stack, and they'll have a bunch of stuff done in a matter of like 2 days. And so, just making sure they can sort out any potential issues right now is probably best, so they can get that same sort of timeline again.
One of the comments that the gentleman from SpaceX made to me, he said that this baby's ready to fly in 48 hours. All I need is 48 hours notice and it's flying.
Yep, I have
Awesome.
heard very similar things as well. Yeah, they basically, as soon as they get the notification for the license that FTS goes on, they stack and they basically they wait for launch.
Interesting. They haven't moved the crane away yet. It doesn't need the hot stage ring removing again. The crane should go over to the suborbital tank farm area. We do see some more concrete work. I guess this will have to be filled in again before launch. You wouldn't want plume to get underneath the concrete again. We saw how that turns out last time, didn't we?
It is interesting that they they waited this long to do any work with the concrete here. It almost seems like maybe the crane had damaged some of that concrete, kind of rolling back and forth, dealing with the hot stage ring and whatnot previously. So it looks like maybe some recent damage that they're trying to patch up quick.
Yeah, especially this close to launch. Okay, we'll go into the tank farm. So not much just changed at all in the tank farm. We still see that piece there and those pieces there. Everything's much the same. I'll see if I can find a photo. We can see they've been busy out here in the flat. The Fish and Wildlife Service have been busy out here on the flatland. And Todd, did you see them doing some work out there when you were there at Crowfest?
Yeah, they were just, I think, every day but Sunday out there. They were on the SpaceX side, it looked like, picking up stuff. They were actually bringing stuff out in the skid loader out to the dumpsters out there, and I'm glad Dave did it first because he found out that they didn't care if we just take stuff right out of the skid loader if there was anything we wanted. So I went and did that too, and was able to get some nice chunks of fondag and see if there's anything neat to go through. But they are contracted through Fish and Wildlife. They're not SpaceX employees. I do know that. But yeah, they were out there pretty much the whole time other than Sunday working and cleaning up.
So I've laid out mats for the skid steers, and during show and tell, Dave was saying that they were bringing, one skid steer was bringing stuff to the tent here, and then a second skid steer was bringing stuff, debris along this track and into that dumpster there. The dumpster that you guys were dumpster diving in, which is awesome to see. There's no shame in dumpster diving at SpaceX, at Starbase, that's for sure.
No
Unless it's the
shame at
ITAR
all.
dumpster.
What was that, Ryan?
Unless it's the ITAR dumpster.
So a couple of images from Todd. He really did get close to the booster there, and you're expressing it was almost like an eclipse when it went past you.
Yeah, as it got to that point, I wasn't looking up right at that point, and it just got shadowed and cooled down a little bit. And I looked up and see that, and I was practically speechless and just trying to get pictures and just enjoy it. It was really neat to see. And then they come around that corner and kept getting closer, and off they went. It was really cool to be that close to it.
And you're saying they had trouble with the bollard, and that bollard there, I believe.
Yeah, it's typical SpaceX style. They couldn't get that last one out. They had 4 or 5 guys yanking on it trying to get it out, and they managed to get around it without it. I thought for sure they weren't going to. I was quite impressed. I mean, again, I know I've seen them moving those things around. I knew they can maneuver pretty good, but that guy who's controlling that is a pro. He just out, around, and down the street, maybe one tire, a quarter inch off the road, if that. I don't know, but he knew what he was doing and did not need that one removed.
They've had plenty of practice. Oh, there's the D-stack and Grandpa Joe.
Yeah, well, we were out in the dunes with the Grandpa Joe. We got up early to that day to make sure we saw it because we knew again it was coming down, and we wanted to get out there. And we got up nice and early, and it was well worth it. Just sat out there and just stared at it and disbelief that it's actually happening, and that was really neat.
So you got to see a full stack, you got to see a transport, and you got to see a D-stack. That was pretty good.
Yeah, we were very happy with our timing. It was, I know other people had talked about being there, either missing the D-stack by a little bit, or just not seeing any of that stuff in their trips. And we felt very fortunate of the timing of what we got to see there. That was awesome.
And was there any words that your daughter would like to share with us this afternoon?
No, I don't think so. I do know she said she had a great time. I'll check with her in a second here.
Okay, to finish out the show today, Ryan, we'll have a bit of a talk about the launch and what's going on. We've seen a few releases between this little notice and the SpaceX website.
Yeah, so I think we heard maybe a couple of weeks back that the FAA was pretty optimistic that they would finish their portion of the reviews, before the end of the month, and we got this statement here on the 31st that the FAA has indeed completed pretty much the majority of their work. It essentially says it's down to getting the last approval from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services to kind of check the last box, and then the FAA should be able to issue a launch license to SpaceX. So that's really exciting news. Obviously, we don't know how long the Fish and Wildlife may take, but it seems that SpaceX is pretty optimistic that it might come here pretty soon, given that they updated their website the other day. I believe it was actually yesterday around noon Starbase time. They updated their website with a whole slew of information, just like they did for the Flight 1. So got all sorts of information regarding kind of pre-launch stuff, the actual launch. Got a cool graphic here, which it's a little bit misleading. I'm not going to lie. I think each time they've had a graphic like this, it's a little misleading with the whole boost back and the booster upside down and confusion there. But I actually had a conversation with Zach Golden about this kind of yesterday. But yeah, the trajectory they're trying to show here isn't entirely accurate. The booster's not going to do a flip. They're just trying to show like the water landing is going to be a different location than the launch, and it's going to be different from the ship landing. So they're trying to space stuff out, and the only way to kind of get that whole curve there is to have the booster kind of take that trajectory. But no, the booster's not going to do a flip. It's going to probably won't flip at all. It's just going to turn maximum of 180 degrees. So a little misleading there, but it's really nice that SpaceX kind of provides these graphics to kind of give us an overview of kind of what their plan is for flight. But yeah, it's the same as Flight 1, essentially, other than the hot staging. Still the ship reentry unpowered, with probably an explosive end at the water landing. So it's interesting to see that's still the plan. So still no attempt to land with the engines on the ship, but yeah, they ignition and liftoff. It looks like liftoff will be about 2 seconds after they're quoted to T0, which something to note here is on a lot of other launch vehicles, it doesn't necessarily T0 is kind of relative. In the case of Starship, it seems like most likely the clamps are open on Starship. They open, if it's similar to Flight 1, it'll be about 11 minutes before launch. They actually open the clamps. So if you were extremely strong, you could actually pull the whole stack off of the mount, no problem. But because it's so heavy with all the propellant, it kind of just stays upright. And they ignite the engines, and it still doesn't move because the engines are throttled down. But they then throttle up, and at that point is when the whole stack actually leaves the launch mount. So that's why we think liftoff is probably about 2 seconds, as that's the amount of time it takes for the engines to kind of do their self-check and then throttle up to I think 90% power and then to full power. So, but yeah, we've got our max Q listed. And then it is interesting with the booster MECO, normally stands for main engine cutoff. In this case, it's most engines cut off. So we know from kind of past discussions that the booster is going to have the inner 3 center engines remaining lit, but they're going to throttle down. And at that point, the ship will be able to ignite and separate from the booster. And then at some point after the ship gets some distance away from the booster, the engines on the booster are going to gimbal, which will then kind of pitch the top of the booster upward. And it will kind of do what they're calling their flip maneuver, even though it's not going to be a full flip. But it will pitch it up. That way they can cancel out the horizontal velocity and start to kind of head back. And at that point, the remaining center engines are going to start. That's where the boost back burn startup will occur. And that's going to boost for about a minute or so. And then they'll shut down. And then, of course, the booster is going to come back. It's going to land off the coast. They are going to try and, target a landing position. So it'll be very interesting to see how close they can get to their kind of targeted landing position, because that's going to be very important for the first catch attempt. The closer they can get with these booster, water touchdowns, the sooner that a landing attempt or a catch attempt will come to fruition. So got that. Of course, we've got a long time then for Starship reentry, pretty much expected. But I believe all of these numbers have been optimized a little bit. I think they're planning to get to the ship engine cutoff a little bit sooner. I don't remember the exact number. Maybe it was around like 50 seconds sooner. So they've kind of optimized the whole system here with the faster startup sequence and the hot staging and stuff. So it's really interesting that SpaceX puts out these timelines here for us. And I think we're going to be in for some excitement here soon. There's been kind of some discussions about potentially the week of the 13th might be what SpaceX is targeting. Of course, that's still kind of a net, as they call it, or no earlier than. So we'll have to wait and see what comes of the launch license. If the launch license does not come out by the 10th, there is no chance of the 13th happening. But we'll have to keep our eyes open to see if we can get a launch license next week, and hopefully we get a Flight 2 here soon.
And for those playing at home, there's some Morse code here that says excitement guaranteed. Okay, Joe, can we have some questions and donations, please?
Indeed, we had Jim Cabot come in at the end of the last round, the $10 super chat. Thank you. Just like Sharpie and Rocket said. And T. Evans NC gifted a membership along with William Foss. Thank you both. Robert Burkett, what are the larger vertical stringer type things on the side of the booster? Not sure if that's the reference to the two larger CO2 tanks, or are we actually talking about larger vertical stringers on the side of the booster?
Guessing we're talking about the chines there. Yeah. So the ones on the left, so they're kind of mirrored from this perspective. There's two on this side, and there's two on the opposite side. The two that would be on the left side are covering COPVs, so composite overwrapped pressure vessels. Those are containing various gases required for starting the booster engines in flight. So I'm guessing there's going to be some helium over there. There's probably going to be some methane, maybe some nitrogen for purging those engines. Just various gases inside those tanks. I'm not sure if we know the exact number and what exactly they contain, but I know there's going to be probably at least helium and nitrogen over there. The ones on the right would be holding those large stainless steel tanks we talked about for the CO2. So if you look at some close-up images, they do have the bottom of those chines off. You can kind of see a little bit going on underneath there as well from some ground images. So I know there's been some photos of those in the past.
And the helium in that would be for the engine start for the landing burn. Would that be right?
It would be for the boost back and the landing burn. Yep.
Because boost back, the engines don't actually stop, do they?
Yeah, and that's probably also another optimization with some people are interpreting the graphic and what SpaceX has listed as the three center engines will throttle down and then turn off, and then the boost back will start, and so all the engines will start again. I don't read it as that, and knowing I guess what SpaceX has talked about in the past. I think that they're going to keep those three center engines continuing to run, and another benefit of that is that then they don't have to preserve extra gases to start those engines, because it does take a decent amount of gas to actually start these engines, especially with the torch igniters and everything else that the sequence that has to take place. So leaving those engines running allows them to pitch the booster over, as well as just save on having to carry the extra gas for those three engines.
I love that most engine cutoff. That's rad. Kal-El asks, did anybody hear that the loud sound at the end of the deluge is no longer there? I suppose comparing to maybe the first test that we've seen compared to the last test.
Maybe they didn't. Maybe they don't vent the tanks. I'm not sure. Ryan, what are your thoughts on that?
I have not heard the loud sound personally. I have heard other people talk about it. I'm not really sure how much I can, I guess, make of it. I know the audio can be pretty difficult to discern sometimes with different audio levels across different cameras and stuff. So it's not always an exact apples to apples comparison. But I'd have to go back and look at some of the videos to see if I could hear a loud sound occurring or not.
Yeah, most definitely. Good answer. Final question I got from Rocket Prophet. Could those mystery white frames in Sanchez be for the newer, wider chines?
That's a good question, here. Let's go back and have a little look at them.
Not quite sure the shape would really imply that. Yeah, the spacing wouldn't be right, and the size is a little bit too big in my opinion. If it were to be, to go around the chine, yeah, that seems too big for that. I still wonder if it has something to do with the white engine stands, like a
That'd
platform
put them
between
like
them.
right out here somewhere.
Yeah, they'd be pretty big if you use that stand as roughly what are those stands? Are they like 12 meters? I think maybe.
Yeah,
They're
that's correct. Yeah, they're
somewhere.
bigger than a transport stand, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that'd be really big for the chines, I believe.
It makes a ship's transport stand look quite small, these stands.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, Joe, anything else?
That's all I got. I'd just like to remind everybody to please hit that thumbs up on your way out. Appreciate that.
All right, well, I'll sign off first. Appreciate you all joining us today for live stream, and I really appreciate Todd and Phil and Ryan for joining today. It's always good to get some more commentators in here to share their views and their knowledge of Starbase. And I'll say goodbye and see you all next time. I'll hand it over to Todd and then Ryan.
I really appreciate you guys having me. This has been a lot of fun. If you guys out there have not been there yet, I just can't recommend enough to go. If you're in my situation where I can't afford to try to plan a trip around a launch, Crowfest is probably by far the best time. I guess I haven't been without Crowfest, but Crowfest was amazing. The people were unbelievable. It was so much fun. Everyone's there to talk to. It was just that really made a lot of the trip was being there with Crowfest with the people. So if you're trying to figure out a time to go and you can't afford to go around to launch, I would highly suggest a Crowfest visit because it's well worth it. Everybody have a good day out there, and I'll send it over to PK.
Everybody, I'll have a good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity. I'll input what I can, and off to Ryan.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Let's see here. I'm not really sure what we have planned for the next flyover, but potentially we have one more flyover where we will see Booster 9 and Ship 25 at the launch site. So it'll be really exciting to see what happens next week with FAA approval, and maybe we can get a launch happening earlier in the week of the 13th, and yeah, have SpaceX move on to kind of their next phase of vehicles and testing and innovation. So I'm sure we'll have tons of images to go over next week and then the following weeks after.
All right.
Just quickly, we should thank Jeff for producing today too. Thanks.
Indeed, I was going to do that myself. So thank you, Stephanie. Pleasure sharing the stream with you. Great job driving and narrating. Phil Kidd, thanks for joining us as well. Ryan Hansen, always appreciate your knowledge. Todd, thanks for joining and sharing your experience down there. So main engine cutoff, stage separation confirmed. Love you, bye.